Hello and welcome to Castar Reviews. Today is the day that the Devil May Cry retrospective ends. For now, you never know when DMC 6 will be announced. Either way, Devil May Cry 5 is the most recent game in the chronology. So recent in fact that it only came out this past February. With that in mind, spoiler warnings are on high alert here at Castar Reviews. As far as the development history is concerned, the gap between DMC 4 and DMC 5 is the longest between main series entries. Also, Devil May Cry 5 utilizes the RE engine, which was made for Resident Evil 7 and the remake of Resident Evil 2. I'll go more into the aesthetic effects of the engine change in the presentation section. Like I said in the last review, the reaction and discussion that resulted from the reboot may have played a part in this game's creation. I don't know that for sure though, so don't take that as gospel. What I do know is that Devil May Cry 5 is my favorite game in the series so far, and that a lot of people feel the same. Without further ado, let's rock into that plot summary. Chronologically, the story goes all over the place, so to keep it simple, I'm not going in mission order here. So our story begins with Nero chilling and working on his van. Kyria calls him in for dinner, but he is then approached by a hooded figure. This hooded figure takes a liking to the Devil Bringer and straight up rips it off Nero's arm. Dude, that thing was attached, how did he do that? The hooded figure then takes Yamato and escapes. If you've played any recent Devil May Cry up to this point, you know exactly who that hooded guy is. Also, Nero has a new partner now, Nico Goldstein, who is actually Agnes's daughter. Who would have thought that that stuttering weirdo would get any girls, especially considering how cowardly he was. Nico drives the Devil May Cry, which is a van now, and she hates her father just like the rest of us, so she's cool in my book. A few months after Nero becomes even more left-handed, a giant demon tree known as the Qlipoth grows in Redgrave City. The importance of the tree is that it bears fruit that grants demons incredible power. J.D. Morrison, Dante's agent from the anime, visits the Devil May Cry and offers Dante a new job.
Cash up front. This I like. The water needs turning on and those toilets need flushing.
Water, gas, and power. Coming out of your cut. You're a real agency now.
After that, Dante leaves to undertake the job with Lady and Trish. Nero and V climb up the tree and see that Dante, Lady, and Trish are getting their asses handed to them by Urizen, the Demon King. Nero tries to fight the demon, but Dante tells him to leave and he escapes with V. Nero and V make it their mission to destroy the roots of the Qlipoth, and they do end up destroying most of the roots. While on their way, Nero and V split up. They each rescue Trish and Lady from being trapped inside two boss monsters, and V tells Trish about who he really is.
In order to defeat his younger brother, he could only do one thing with the crumbling flesh and feelings. He needed to separate man from devil with the strength of the Yamato. And eventually, the man became a true devil.
The reason that Nero and V split up was because V wants to hunt down the Sparta sword. V has been losing energy for the entire game, so his theory is that he can gain more power by using the sword. V finds the sword stuck in a building, and he retrieves it. After acquiring the sword, he almost stabs Dante with it for some reason. Dante wakes up just in time and takes the sword away from V. Dante then makes his way to his childhood home and sees it in ruins. Dante then reminisces about how his double trigger was awoken in Devil May Cry 3, and hypothesizes that if he stabs himself with Rebellion, he might gain more power. Shockingly, this works, and Dante gains a new form of Devil Trigger and an upgrade to Rebellion. Dante then makes his way up the Qlipoth and arrives at the lower level of the tree. When he arrives, the gang's all here. Nico comes up to Dante like a nervous fangirl because apparently they have a hidden connection.
I'm Nicoletta Goldstein. Sound familiar? My grandmother is Nell Goldstein, the gunsmith that made all your fancy weapons that you got strapped back there. Yeah, there she is!
You don't much look like her.
The three main heroes split up and try to go to the top of the tree. Nero and V meet up, and V is even closer to dying than before. V then gives Nero the same spiel that he gave Trish, and they head up to the tree together from here on out. Meanwhile, Dante fights Urizen for the final time, and Urizen then eats the fruit of the tree. Even after the power-up, Urizen isn't enough for Dante's new power. V and Nero catch up to the brothers, and V stabs Urizen with his cane. This causes an explosion of light, and we then see Virgil in his more traditional form. Virgil then disappears through a portal, and Nero deduces that Virgil is the hooded figure who took his arm. Nero naturally wants to kill him, but Dante intervenes and finally breaks the news that Virgil is Nero's father. Dante doesn't want Nero to kill his own father, so he decides to fight him alone. Dante and Virgil start to duel just like the third game, but Nero doesn't listen to Dante and makes his way up to the top of the Qliphoth to kill Virgil. Conveniently, he finds a working phone. How do landlines work on giant plants? Nero uses this phone to call Kyrie because he's a little overwhelmed since he found out that he has a family. Kyrie tells him that he shouldn't doubt himself, and that gives him the confidence to go up there and fight Virgil. In related news, Nero's arm grows back, and no, it's not another Devil Bringer. While that would have been sick, Nero just grows a regular right arm to match the left. Nero interrupts the brotherly duel to show off his new Devil Trigger. Nero defeats Virgil, and Virgil makes a truce with Dante to cut down the Qliphoth once and for all. After the main roots are cut down, the two decide to spar again until they're interrupted by demons. What an interesting continuation of the continuity. Here I was thinking that Nero had his arc in Devil May Cry 4, but his development definitely continues in this game. It does feel pretty similar to Nero's story in DMC 4 though, with him coming to terms with his identity, but I do appreciate the character growth nonetheless. The twist at the end was foreshadowed really hard since it was obvious that Virgil was the hooded figure from the beginning. As far as the personality of all the characters are concerned, they check out, although V just seems like a Debbie Downer when compared to the rest of the cast. Nico is definitely my favorite out of the new characters. It feels like she and Nero have more of a connection in this game than Nero and Kyrie did in the previous one. I do wish Kyrie played more of a role than just being a disembodied voice. If they're supposed to be together, then why aren't they shown together? If a game is going to tell the player that certain characters are connected, I want to see evidence of that fact. Okay, let's see how the RE engine works in a Devil May Cry game. In short, the RE engine works really well for this game. If I were to complain about anything, it would be that the colors look a little muted as a result of the photorealistic environments. Once you get to the Qliphoth, it gets a little better, but still nowhere near as visually interesting as DMC Devil May Cry. A few characters were slightly redesigned. Nero cut his hair, and Dante looks a lot older. Looking at Dante's appearance in the first few trailers for this game, I was wondering how far in the future this takes place, but Trish and Lady look exactly the same, so I feel that Dante's new look is out of place. I do like Nero's new look, however. It kind of fits his place as Virgil's son. As far as everyone else is concerned, I find it weird that V looks so much like Adam Driver. I don't know if they planned it that way or it just worked out to be like that. Trish, Lady, and Nico look great, and I think this is the best Virgil costume in the history of the series. The voice acting is great as usual. The cast from DMC 4 has reprised their roles. My one complaint is that Dante sounds like he's out of breath at all times. It can get irritating after a while. I'm a big fan of the sound design and soundtrack. The main theme, Devil Trigger, is phenomenal and one of my favorite tracks in the series. The sound effects are also as punchy as ever. Nero's Devil Breakers, V's Familiars, and Dante's arsenal of weapons sound really satisfying. As an aside, I would love to watch the Foley artists as they put together the sound effects for a game of this magnitude. There are 3 different gameplay styles, so let's go one at a time here. Nero plays more or less like his DMC 4 incarnation, but his right arm adds a new wrinkle to gameplay. Nico makes some mechanical replacements for his missing limb, and they can do a variety of things. Some of my favorites are Overture, which lets out a burst of lightning, Tomboy, which upgrades the red, green, and blue rose, and the Mega Buster, because it's the Mega Buster. Mega Man's arm is DLC, however, along with a bunch of bananas and a few other additional arm attachments. While the Devil Bringer is gone, the grapple function still works to a point. After beating the game once, you gain use of the Devil Bringer as in Devil May Cry 4. But before that, grabbing enemies and slamming them on the ground is impossible. But you can still grab enemies and pull them towards you. Another game completion reward is the use of Devil Trigger, which adds a touch of replay value. I liked Nero's style before, and I actually think that Capcom improved his gameplay from Devil May Cry 4. If I could nitpick a little, I do wish that the use of Devil Breakers weren't so temporary. It would have been awesome if you could pick arms and switch them like Dante's combat styles. Speaking of, Dante plays almost exactly the same as before, but he gained some new weapons. My favorite is Cavalier, which is a motorcycle split in half that is rideable in short bursts. Since almost every Devil May Cry game has to have an Ifrit clone, here's Balrog. The name is actually a reference to the Street Fighter character of the same name, which is fitting, except for the fact that Street Fighter Balrog can't kick. You also fight Cerberus again, and gain another set of nunchucks. The great part about these weapons is they also produce lightning and fire. Lastly, there are some interesting guns in Dante's pouch. My favorite is the double Kalina N, because who doesn't love 2 rocket launchers? Dr. Faust is literally a gamble where you spend red orbs to use it and gain a ton more by killing enemies. The last of our protagonist trifecta is V. V has the most unique playstyle in the entire series. This guy is just one big DMC1 reference, since he is a remnant of Virgil's time as Nello Angelo. V is the kind of guy that lets his familiars do all the work until the enemy is at its weakest. His familiars were bosses in the first game, Shadow, Griffin, and Nightmare. All 3 have moves similar to their initial appearances, and V controls each with a button. Shadow is the melee familiar for close combat, Griffin is the projectile familiar for long-range fighting, and Nightmare acts as V's Devil Trigger. My favorite thing about Nightmare is his entrance. If you pop Devil Trigger near a breakable wall, then Nightmare bursts through like the Kool-Aid Man. While V's gameplay is fun at times, I'm not really a fan of his gameplay style. On some missions, you can choose which character you want to play as, and I never pick V. The last thing I want to touch on is DLC. If you purchase the deluxe edition of the game, then you gain access to all the extra Devil Breakers as well as the option for custom soundtracks. Also, there are microtransactions. Proud Orbs are no longer a thing, so Red Orbs are back to being your currency for everything. You can purchase Red Orbs for real money, but please don't do that. If you're at least a little competent at this game, you will have plenty of orbs to get whatever upgrades you might need. I don't want to end this retrospective on a bad note, so I'm going to reiterate how much I love this game. If this, for whatever reason, would be it for the series, I would be totally fine with that. Devil May Cry 5 is a celebration of the series after this point and everything that makes it good. As promised at the end of my last video, I have a surprise double review coming up in the next 2 weeks. My only hint is that this double review is covering games that were also created by Hideki Kamiya. Thank you for watching this episode of Castar Reviews and the Devil May Cry retrospective. Please subscribe for more content from me and follow me on Twitter for production updates. See you in 2 weeks for the double review.